5,584 watts, dropping down to 12 volts. Today, we are going to push my test bench to the max. Our friends over at NVX sent me out a 5,000 watt monoblock. This will be the biggest amp I've ever tested. But before we get into that, let's open the box up and let's see what is inside.
Yeah, I just want to be the greatest.
So this amp is not huge, but it is pretty beefy. We'll check them guts out later. For now, let's see how big it is. It is 9 inches wide, right at 12 inches long when you include the terminals. And it is around 2.5 inches high. All right, let's look in the manual and see what this bad boy is rated here. This is the XAD15. So we are rated 1,850 watts at 4 ohm mono. We're rated 3,300 watts at 2 ohm mono and 5,000 watts at 1 ohm mono. They, of course, recommend 1/0 wire. I certainly do as well. All right, let's check out the amp itself. We have one RCA input, one RCA output, a subsonic filter from 15 hertz to 40 hertz, low pass filter from 50 to 250. You have your gain and a 12 dB bass boost. You also have a power clip and protect light, and then it looks like these will accept 8 gauge speaker wire. On the other side, we have the 2 fans and 2 giant 1/0 terminals, one for power, one for ground, and the remote in the middle. We're going to start off with the 4 ohm mono test on a 40 hertz sine wave. This is a pure resistive load. We are rated 1,850 watts by 1. Let's see what it'll actually do. Looks like we got 2,018 watts at 14.4 volts, and we drew 250 amps. Next up is the 2 ohm mono test. We're using the same 40 hertz sine wave. It is a pure resistive load. We're looking for 3,300 watts at 14.4 volts. All right, we got 3,313 watts at 13.3 volts, and we drew 380 amps. On to the 1 ohm mono test, same 40 hertz sine wave, same pure resistive load. The only difference here is we're going to do a burst test because my bench cannot handle the 600 plus amps that this pulls just constantly. So we're going to do a few bursts here and see if we can get the numbers like that. So overall, we ended up with 5,412 watts at 11.9 volts and drew 671 amps. All right, so final thoughts on the NVX XAD15. The thing is an absolute monster. It pulled over 660 something amps on the 1 ohm test, and this thing was literally the first true test of the new test bench. And let me say, it really stressed it out. At 1 ohm, I had a hard time doing a regular full run, and I had to do some burst runs to kind of get a result because it would drag the bank down so quickly with that much amperage. Of course, anything over 600 amps is really a strain on the test bench, so that was expected. Other than that, it exceeded all the other ratings at often less than 14.4 volts. If you can supply it more voltage, it would certainly give you a lot more than the 5,500 watts that we've seen. It's all a matter of the electrical that you can provide it. So if you can keep a steady voltage of 14.4 volts at 1 ohm, you'll probably see closer to 6,000-7,000 watts depending on your setup. That being said, should you buy this amp? Well, it depends on your setup. Are you going to have a beefy alternator? I currently have 200 amps of power supply, a 48 amp hour spin bank, and a U-Start 375 farad capacitor, all hooked up and this drained it down. So if you're going to run something like this, you probably want at least a 250 amp alternator. You're probably going to want a pretty decent sized lithium bank. But if you can do that, this thing is going to provide you all the power you need for most people, I would assume. So that's it. That's the dyno. That's the review of the NVX XAD15. I think it is a very powerful amplifier in a nice compact package. And if you're looking for a lot of power, you need something compact, go ahead and pick it up. And if you do, go to nvx.com and use coupon code HifiVega10 for 10% off. Let them know your boy sent you. And with all that being said, I hope to catch you in my next video. I'd like to thank all my Patreon supporters, but the $6 or more members get a special shout out, and that is 2001 Monolithic, Gene Nava, Joaquin Juarez, El Fuego Audio, Travis McClendon, Brandon Hanna, William Berg, Boxboy Audio Sound Solutions, Jesus Tires, Dennis Cromwell Jr., Scott Dilbeck, D. Stewart, David Kozlik, Scott McCord, Matthew Tolberg, Cornut, Trucker 9000, Bobby Burkett, Kevin Lautner, James Childers, Baba, Thomas Marshall, Living Loud with Andy, Neil Nato, Chris Cogburn, Lars Madsen, and Old School Stereo. For as little as $2 a month, you can join the Patreon team and get exclusive Patreon-only content, including a monthly Patreon-only hangout stream. It's a really good time. You guys are missing out, and if you want to join, check me out at patreon.com/HifiVega.